But what should we be thinking about the NFL season 9 weeks in? I want to get Jay Fitz's thoughts. Spain and Fitz, 7 o'clock to 9 on 97.3 ESPN. Are the Patriots, is that over? Is that Patriots thing done? What about expanding the NFL playoffs? Let's start with that as we bring in Jason Fitz. Now on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. What do you think about expanding the NFL playoffs for just this year? Is this not a precursor, if they do this, potentially, of letting more playoff teams get in? Or, I mean, they already let one extra team in. I have no idea what the purpose is of saying, let's bring in an 8th team in the event that we can't finish the season.
Yeah, I mean, it feels pretty weak to me. A couple of things. Like, it's the first time we've seen the league acquiesce they need a backup plan, which I think is significant. Like, think all the way back to free agency and the draft. Every time somebody has said, hey, what's your backup plan? They've essentially said, we don't need one. We're the NFL, so screw you. Right now they're giving us like well, guys, we got a backup plan. Trust me. That tells me that they think there's going to be an issue, but I'm with you. I don't think that the real solution here is playoff expansion. I mean, the real solution is to push everything back a week and allow games to be made up if they need to be made up, because, ultimately that's what everybody wants, is to see their team play their full slate of games. So I don't really understand it. I'm with you. I think they're overthinking, and it's just a reminder that they want to make sure that they get that TV money from an extra playoff appearance. So hopefully it doesn't become a trend, though. 8's too many.
I'll tell you what, if you're watching the college game, it's starting to get a little skeptical on whether they're going to get to the finish line, though, with all these games played, right? I mean, the NFL hasn't lost any games yet, but college is losing games left and right. So if you're the NFL, are you starting to get a little concerned?
Oh, yeah, I am. And, and I'll steal this from Mike Golick Jr. I was talking to him yesterday about all the cancellations, and he made a really good point. One thing to keep in mind is that bad football teams, guys that have sacrificed everything, but they're playing on a team that now stinks, they might pay a little less attention to the details and might just be having a little bit more life fun, like they're college kids, right? So if you're on LSU and you know this season's just gone awful, are you just a little bit more relaxed in the way that you handle your COVID protocols? And so ultimately, fine for LSU, but that's a huge impact to, like, Alabama. They want to get that game played because they want to make sure they get as many games possible to have the best resume. So I think what we're seeing are bad teams aren't taking it as seriously as good teams in some instances, and that can actually have real ramifications.
Yeah, we had Sal Powell on Friday, and he said there is COVID fatigue. These guys are getting tested every single day since August, and every day is so regimented for them with this COVID that, and I brought up the same point, that if you're the Jets at 0-8, are you as cautious as you may have been as a team who has a legit shot at this? And I think the NFL might have to think way outside the box on this.
Well, yeah, and the trickle-down effect is huge, because if you're the Jets, you don't really care. But, if you're the Jets playing the Raiders in a month and it's a big game for the Raiders to make sure they get the extra win in the playoff conversation, boy, the Raiders certainly care, So that's the problem, is that both sides aren't always at the same footing with all of it. And the other part of it is we have to acknowledge that even if no matter what anybody thinks on the science or the masks or whatever, if you go back to the first things we were told when this all began was, hey, there's going to be another wave in the fall. Well, what do you know? We got the fall, and there's another wave. So it's nationally an issue, and it's going to be an issue for all pro sports. Is why I think it's interesting that we're just presuming that the NBA is going to get plowing ahead on December 22nd when we can't even figure out if college football is going to be playing in December.
Well, I was going to ask you, how do you think that this impacts college basketball? It kind of seems out of sight, out of mind, but I'm a college basketballs man, and I know it's different. You got the indoor facilities compared to being outdoors, but college football is clearly struggling right now, and there is a divide when it comes to college sports and pro sports when it comes to getting the job done throughout COVID.
I think the panic level for college basketball is through the roof. And, we had Jay Billis on last night on Spain and Fitz, and I was texting Jay afterwards, and I think the thing that we're not talking enough about are limited roster sizes in college basketball are real. So it's not like the NBA, or it's not like college football where you can turn around and say, okay, we'll just next man up. Well, you only have so many next man up before you're just out of people on limited rosters, limited scholarships. So it's going to be difficult, and that's why we've already seen the NCAA committee for college basketball come in and say, hey, we're going to be lenient on how many games it takes to play, that you have to play to get into the tournament. I think college basketball realizes right out of the gate they're going to have a massive issue. And frankly, the other part of it is those already tested positive for COVID-19. Like, we always talk about the players, but there's also a slew of coaches that are going to be at risk for this. So I don't think anything is simple for college basketball.
Or college football, which just lost another big game, and it's not a big game in terms of Maryland and Ohio State, but Ohio State is trying to catch up in the amount of games it's playing to justify itself. I mean, college football is going to have a mess at the end of the. Let's say Ohio State only gets 3 or 4 games in.
Right, and that's the nightmare scenario because for anybody that doesn't realize it, the Big Ten has told you got to play at least 6 games, and if nobody does, there's some tiebreakers, but you got to play at least 6 games basically to be in the championship game for the conference. But the committee hasn't told us anything about what they expect from minimum games played to be able to be considered. So I think there's a very real possibility that a lot of fans are angry when a Ohio State team, let's say that's won 5 games, gets in the playoffs over an SEC team of some sort that, like a Florida. Let's say Florida ends up getting 9 or 10 games played and has 1 loss. They'll get left out behind a 4-0 and a 5-0 Ohio State. And Wisconsin's another good example. They won their first game of the year. They're finally back on the field. No idea how many games they're going to play or how the committee's supposed to put them into the conversation. So it's a nightmare for college football.
Yeah, real bad. Team 1, Alabama. Team 3, Ohio State. Team 5, Texas A&M. Team 12, Georgia. And Team 24, Auburn, are all canceled this week. So you've got 5 ranked teams, including 3 in the top 5 that will not play. We'll see what happens with college football. I do want to get your take. We're talking NFL, and we saw the Patriots on Monday night and this conversation about, is there some sort of referendum on Belichick or Brady? Have we made that decision? I don't know about that, but have we made a referendum on this Patriots team being not very good?
Yeah, this is one of the hot take things that I think has really blown my mind, even within the company that I work for. We're so desperate to excuse why the Patriots stink. We can't just turn around and say, hey, guys, this is a bad football team. They've drafted poorly at the top of the draft. They haven't had enough talent. It's been masked for the last several years. They took a flyer on a free agent quarterback. It turns out, looks like it may not have worked out very well. They're now dealing with what every other fan base deals with. What I can't stand is that we have to turn it into, no, Belichick knows what he's doing. He signed Cam for a deal. And then when that didn't work out, without even acquiescing that hot take, then we're like, oh, wait. No, they're tanking. That's what they want to do. And then without even acknowledging that, then we're like, no, Jared Stidham. Well, we've heard all of these things before. When do we stop apologizing for the Patriots and just acknowledge that this year's Patriots team is bad? They're a bad football team. They don't have enough talent, and they need to rebuild the roster. That'll be the real statement for Belichick.
Yeah, I think the Belichick thing is funny because there was a bunch of rumors out there, just fun on Twitter, saying that Bill Belichick wanted the Jets to win, so then they wouldn't get Trevor Lawrence, so he's pretty much playing chess while everyone's playing checkers, which is outrageous. But I want to get your thoughts on Cam Newton. What do you think the future of Cam Newton is if he continues the season playing the way that he has?
Well, he's got to play better to have any future, and right now I think his future is as a backup somewhere. But I will say, Field Yates said on the Monday Night Football digital show I do with him every week this week, he said that he's talked to people around the Patriots organization, and they love Cam. They're not ruling out the possibility of Cam coming back next year as the starter. So, to me, that's a stunning that would be the downfall of the Patriots. At this point, you got to swallow your pride and admit it that no matter what brilliant genius you think you are, you got to rebuild this thing. And so I think Cam's future is probably as a backup, and will he want to take that role? That's an interesting question, but I don't think that, especially given the youth movement happening right now at quarterback in the NFL, I just don't see a spot for Cam.
ESPN's Jason Fitz. Spain and Fitz airs right here on 97.3 ESPN from 7 to 9 p.m. I want to close with this because baseball is in its off season, and who knew, right? Basketball, when the NBA has free agency, it is just pandemonium. Football, we just count down. Can't baseball get it right? The top players should already be signed and people should be excited. Did anybody, Jay Fitz, did you even know baseball free agency had begun?
No, and that's, you're 1,000% right about the failing. And this is what I always say, there are in music, there are certain artists that are so popular, they can just drop an album out of nowhere and everybody goes nuts. That's the 1%. The 99% release a single and a single and a single just to promote a record until people care about it. And you think about movies. Movies aren't dropped in the middle of the night. You see the trailer for a bad action movie so many times that eventually you convince yourself you want to watch it. Major League Baseball has forgotten that they need that. They need the advanced singles. They need the trailer. They need to remind everybody of what's making the sport right now particularly fun to watch. I think there are a lot of good stories. They're just not great at telling them. And until they realize that they have to tell that story, they're not going to get the credit that they deserve at this point, and it's going to be detrimental for the sport moving forward.
Yeah, it's amazing that they can't get this right. You're talking about some of the top free agents not signing until February. I mean, Bryce Harper didn't sign with the Phillies until into March a couple of years ago. Baseball has to figure out a way for people to get excited about their offseason. Get excited about Spain and Fitz tonight, 7 to 9, right here on 97.3 ESPN. And, of course, Jason Fitz, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Jay, appreciate it, man.
You guys are the best. Have a great week.
Take care. And he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.